HIV Plan for sex workers. The initiative is part of the National AIDS Council's program to reduce the prevalence of HIV and AIDS in the country. Research shows that sex workers are at high risk of contracting the virus. For more on this, we cross to our reporter Aldrin Sampear, who is at the launch in Johannesburg. Aldrin, very good afternoon to you. The Deputy President earlier this week addressed the NCOP on this issue. What's the significance of the plan, or why is such a plan needed?
Well, the South African National AIDS Council has identified sex workers or the sex work industry as high risk of getting the prevalence or high risk when it comes to HIV/AIDS and new infections. So basically what they're trying to do is ensure that they reduce the number of new infections within the industry and make sure that sex workers also find themselves in a position where they know that their human rights will not be violated in terms of when they try to get a hold of condoms as well as antiretrovirals. And just looking at some of the targets set out in the plan, it wants to make sure that 95% of sex workers use condoms with their clients. It also wants to make sure that 90% of sex workers who test positive are on ARVs, because the United States Center for the Control of Diseases has found that of those who knew their status, only about 19% were on antiretrovirals.
All right, Aldrin, and then I suppose on the back of that, another issue is the criminalization or the decriminalization of sex workers. How is this being addressed?
Well, this is definitely a big topic internationally as well, and we know that the United Nations back in 2012 already has called for the decriminalization of sex workers, and it made a reference point where it said that in New Zealand, for instance, after they decided to decriminalize sex work or the sex work industry, they found that the prevalence of HIV/AIDS in that industry decreased, and there was an increased use of condoms as well. And the hope from some organizations who will be here at the launch of this document will be that as well, to ensure that the sex work industry is decriminalized. And you know that some other issues that sex workers have faced as well is the abuse that they suffer at the hands of police officers, as well as clients who refuse to pay. And the hopes are that they will have some sort of recourse, and we'll have the Deputy Minister of Justice who will give us some details with regards to how far we are when it comes to legalizing sex workers. We know that the ANC Women's League has called for the legalization or decriminalization of sex work, but there are, of course, those, especially in the religious sector, who say that sex work should not be legalized.
All right, Aldrin, thank you very much for that update. Aldrin Sampear, live from Johannesburg. Well, pick it up in Johannesburg is to a point